Good evening. Welcome back to the channel. It is Coach Scott. It's been a minute. I had some personal things going on, but I'm back. Tonight's topic is going to be on prayer and manifestation. But before we jump right in, if you're seeking a consultation or you're seeking a coaching session, then you can hit me. I can be reached at www.lifeis4, the number 4, theliving.net. And the 4, as always, represents soul, spirit, mind, and body. Now, I had a friend that reached out to me and asked me to do this video on prayer and manifestation. And it's to give you some breakdowns of how you can manifest things quick in your life and how you can dam things up to slow down things coming into your life. So we're gonna go over all that and let's jump in. So prayer and manifestation. Most often when we hear the term prayer, we're thinking of making a demand to a God outside of ourselves, which is the traditional perspective and type of prayer. We've been taught that is rooted in religion. Now, this particular type of prayer, that particular type of prayer, that perspective, usually with that type of prayer, there really hasn't been done any. You haven't really worked on yourself. And when I say work on yourself, I'm talking about doing some serious soul searching. Because usually with this particular method, you really haven't questioned anything. Like, okay, who am I? Why do I believe the way I do? What are my reasons for following this faith? Like, those questions aren't being asked. And if they are being asked, it might be some surface questions, but usually that type of personality, there's so much fear. There's so much fear going on that they don't even question those things. Because most of the time, especially if we talking here in the Western part of the world, the Christian doctrine is rooted in, basically hell, fire, and brimstone. Oh, this is wrong, don't do that, all that stuff like that. Just everything's just bad. But it's so much fear attached to the belief. Now, excuse me. Like I said, so much fear attached to it. There really hasn't been any type of soul search. Also, accompanied with that personality, it's almost like the person is, they're looking for permission. They're waiting for someone to tell them, hey, no, you should do this for your life. Now, what I'm saying is there hasn't been any examination. And when I say examination, the question, there's the question that drives you, man, like, okay, man, like, why do I think this way? Or why do I think this way? Are all the faiths similar to what I know? Like, is there another aspect of God that I haven't learned? Nah, usually that's not happening with that particular type of personality. It's just not happening. Which then you, like I said, you creating your own roadblocks. Now, when it comes to examination, like when you starting to question things, to me, that is a form of self-love. Like, you're really wanting to know, like, who am I? Why am I here? Okay, because eventually when you start asking them questions, then that grip that particular belief system that you may be in at that time, it starts to lose that grip because you're not operating out of fear. Now, you got some serious questions going on. And when the desire is deep and it's deep enough, universe is like, all right, hey, this joke is serious. So things will change when you see the need for the change. But that is dealing with that particular mindset, that particular personality. Now, there is another aspect, there's another perspective on prayer, and that is rooted in metaphysics, which is a branch of philosophy that deals with being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. Now, usually, this particular perspective of prayer, once again, it deals with the being, the knowing, the substance, the cause, identity, the time, and the space. This is usually your seeker. This is usually that individual, man. I mean, they've taken, okay, I'm just gonna use a simple one, like you can take Genesis 1, I have created man in my image. Well, you already know an image is a replica, is a copy. All right, so they've ran with that. Like the being part, like it's like, all right, look, all right, according to this, my origins are divine. So this type of personality is going to test that. And then with the testing, it becomes a knowing. Like, when I say knowing, like, you've spent time with yourself. Like, you've actually meditated on those particular words. Or, some jokers might even go further in the book, like the year of gods. Like, you might hear a joker say it all day long. Well, hey, man, it says year of gods. Okay, well, it says it, prove it. I ain't saying you got to go out here and prove it to the audience, but you got to prove it to yourself. So that's where that knowing comes in. That, like, you begin to realize beyond the shadow of a doubt, like, wait a minute. Okay. Huh. All right. This is who I am. So you test it. But like I said, this particular mode of prayer, it usually deals with the seeker. So then the substance, you're dealing with the substance. It's like, all right. So with that, what is the substance that you can use to further build on that seeking aspect? It might be learning mantras. It might be learning mudras to enhance that. Then you have the cause. Because usually when you putting in that much work, man, it's going to cause some things to move. It's going to cause some things to shake up. Then the identity comes in. Because usually, if we go back to the first type, that personality, which I said, most often when we think of this particular type of prayer, it's making a demand to a God outside of ourselves, which is a traditional type of prayer that people have been taught rooted in religion. Now, with that being said, if you no longer identify with that, and then you start to identify with the divinity that's within you, now you're starting to cook. So now you got the identity. So then the whole time and space, man, before you might have been begging for something, but now the time period it takes for you to get something, man, it's like, okay, I got it. Like, okay, it's mine now. And usually with this other perspective, when those things start to line up, you're seeing yourself as a different individual. You're seeing yourself as somebody completely different. You're actually seeing yourself as something divine, as opposed to seeing yourself as some sinful wretch, which a lot of cats get caught up in that. And like I said, you might hear a joker say, oh, that old man, hey, man, year guys. I'm like, all right, well, okay, prove it. You ain't got to tell me that. Prove it to yourself, though. Because at the end of the day, you can read 1,000 holy books, holy books, sacred texts, whatever you want to call it. You can read it all day long, man. But at some point, you put them down and you start testing this. You have to test it for yourself. So, if we go back to the first mindset, making a demand to a God outside of ourselves. All right, usually with that, there's so much fear attached to it, so much guilt. Certain faiths or belief systems that a person is born into, man, uh, they don't see themselves as anything great. Like they don't see outside of that. It's just like, oh man, I'm here. I'm just gonna live this life. Nah. So usually with that, there's no reflection. There's no self-examination. Uh, they they don't really know themselves. Like you haven't done any what we would call shadow work, like looking deep within the self. Because a lot of times, if you're trying to manifest something in your life, man, you might be you're probably your greatest hurdle to get over yourself. Like um, this comes back to the belief part. So beliefs can often reflect the environment you were raised in. And this goes back to this first particular type of predator that I mentioned, that type of personality. You know, they don't want to ruffle feathers. They're afraid of being different. Or, they might have jokers around them, man, why you think that way? Like, what's wrong with you? You might have that going on. Now, the seeker get to the point, it's like, man, I don't care about that. Nah, I don't care about that. Mm-mm. Like, I was such a researcher, read, study, man. When I was living in Columbia, South Carolina, I used to go to this bookstore. It's called Doretha's African Books, man. And man, I was up in that place like, good Lord. I'm probably like if not every day, at least every other day, or I meet some friends up there. We go buy books. She'd have speakers come through. So, nah. But I was just soaking stuff up. And I remember some of the cats I was rolling with, man. We would go listen to different teachers talk. Like, the first time I'd ever heard of Bobby Hemmett was at her store. Like, I think, if I'm right, Bobby came in and spoke a few times. So, it wasn't just Aretha's African Books. Is let's see, Mr. Caru's shop. Mr. Caru sold books. But a lot of times, you catch Mr. Caru in there, man, he could teach you a lot of stuff. So, I was seeking. Now, with the seeking, like I said, going back to that first personality, where you're making demands to a God outside yourself. I had my moment when I went through that. Like, I was like, okay, there's got to be another option, like another way to look at this. So when I started really branching out, going to different lectures, listening to different teachers, I was like, okay. So then I really started focusing on, all right, let me start putting this to the test. There was a book I bought back in the early 2000s. It was called The Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder. Yeah, Catherine Ponder. The Dynamic Laws of Healing. Well, basically, you could use positive affirmations to heal yourself. So, man, at this time, me and my buddy, we would go and compete in bench press competitions. So, man, I had got tendonitis in my elbow real bad. I'm talking about, like, it was so bad, like, that summer, I think the first part of the summer I didn't really work out, or it was really light, and I was depressed because I couldn't do something I loved doing. So what ended up happening, me and a buddy went to the bookstore, and that book was at Doretha's African Books, the Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder. So, man, I said, okay. But it was funny now, leading up to that, I would have my time, my meditation time, and I'd just be like, man, like, okay, how can I, I'm sitting there praying about it. So I'm like, all right, what are the actions? I'm taking some action. I'm like icing this joker, putting it in heat, all types of stuff. So, man, I went there, saw that book. So got the book, started reading it in the car. Me and my buddy was supposed to hang out, and I was like, nah, man, you could drop me back off. He said, man, come on, B. I said, nah, homie, I got to get on this book. So I started reading the book, and Of course, some of the stuff I just mentioned earlier, like Genesis 1, we were created in the image of God. We're divine beings. So I'm soaking this up. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to start doing this. So, man, every day I would just sit with myself and I whisper to myself, I am healed. I am healed. And I would just focus on that elbow, focus on it, focus on it, focus on it. So, man, my pops, went up to my pop's house. Pops got weights in the basement. So, man, oh my gosh. So my uncle was over there. So we over there talking trash. And man, this dude, he knew I was suffering with the tendonitis. So he starts talking trash, man. So I'm sitting here like, man, get out of here. So of course I'm getting angry, because I'm like, man, whatever. And Pops had a rule, if somebody calls you out, you got to defend your title. If you injured, say you're injured, but you lose your title. That was the rules at Pop's house. So man, Pops said, well, son, if he offers a challenge, you got to take it. So I'm sitting here like, man. So anyway, I went outside, walked outside. So now mind y'all, I had been doing my affirmations. So I get out there. So I started kind of centering myself. So right when I'm starting to center myself, man, I hear like the most gentle voice ever. And the voice is like, you want to be healed. And I'm like, yo. So I kind of froze for a second, like, wait a minute. So I'm like, all right. So then it was like, you do want to be healed, right? And I'm like, yo, okay, wow. So of course, I'm like, yeah. I said it with confidence. So like, yeah, because like it startled me at first. So like I said, I went outside to center myself. So right at that moment when I answered, I felt this warm sensation, like go down from my elbow all down my arm. It was just like it was a vibrating feeling. So man, we got back in there, and like I said, my uncle knew that I was out. He knew I had been injured. So man, we got up in there, and I'm like, all right, you pick the weight, I lift it. So Pops is looking at me. Pops is like, son, come on now, you injured. And I'm like, no, I got it. So sure enough, Unc called it out, got on the bench, boom, did it. And he just had this shocked expression on his face like, hold up, I know. So Pops is like, man, I know. And even my uncle was like, man, I know this dude's elbow is messed up. Like, what? It just happened. So anyway, now I know it works. Like, I know it works. Like, I don't have to doubt it. I'm like, okay, man, this works. So, of course, it definitely led me into some other avenues, not just, for bench press competition at that time. So now I'm like, all right, because I think it was a couple months before I had to finish school. So I'm like, all right, I need a better job. So, of course, I started going back through the books, looking at the power of speech, affirmations, and everything went back to, how we are divine beings. So I'm like, okay, let me test this. So I was testing it. Now, before, when I was dealing with that other aspect of the personality where I'm like, okay, I'm making demands to a God outside of myself. Well, when I started applying the techniques in the book, it started actually working. Like it was working. Oh, drop my notes. So, now imagine this. So, with this going on and me starting to manifest things in my life, well, every day I was working on it, doing the affirmation. So, man, I had this one day and I'll never forget it, man. It was like every negative thought I ever had just came. It was bombarding, like coming in all directions. So I'm like, man, what is this? Like, where is this coming from? Now, like I said, I just jumped in the book and started doing the techniques. I didn't go deeper than that and keep reading. And I say, wait a minute. Because it even talked about that, like, hold up. There'll come a moment when, if you've done any negative self-talk, then these thought forms are going to start popping up, like boom, 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 boom. And that started happening. So I'm like, man. So of course, I had my day where I got a little discouraged. I'm like, man, what is this about? So sure enough, let's just show you how things are connected. So me and a buddy, we had met for lunch. So I'm telling him, he's like, dude, what's wrong? Like, you a little off today. And I'm like, yeah, man. Nah, just a rough day. It's a mental day. And that's what I was telling him. So, man, this dude, we started talking. And he said, yeah, man, I've been doing this whole positive affirmation speech thing like that. So I'm like, what? And I'm like, it broke me out of this, me being in that real mental moment, but it broke me out of it. So I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, man, I got this book, man. So this dude pulls out the same book that I had bought. Like, well, it was probably like a week. It had to been like a week earlier. So I'm sitting here like, yo, hold up. So I'm thinking my other buddy told him about the book. I said, man, did Jay tell you about this? He's like, nah. So of course I started laughing. So he's like, what? And I said, nah. I said, I've been using the book, like working with the techniques. He's like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, nah, I've been able to manifest some things, man, like for real. He said, word. And I said, yeah. And so sure enough, I said, well, nah, I didn't. I was so excited with the book that I didn't look at when the thought forms and all that stuff like that come up. I said, man, I didn't look at that. I said, I didn't realize that I do that much negative self-talk. And I was, I've been doing that. So I'm like, man. So of course, I got over that mental day. I got over that. Didn't really take the time to like examine the negative self-talk. At that particular point in time in my life, I really didn't examine it. So I'm like, all right. But I was starting to align certain things with going back to the other perspective on prayer and that type of personality, where, like I said, metaphysics, a branch of philosophy that deals with being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. Now, I did shorten that window of being able to manifest things, but I think it would have took it to a whole nother level if I would have started really examining all the bombardment I had from all the negative self-talk I had done before that, because you have to ask yourself, like, all right, years later, upon deeper examination, it was like, all right, man, where did that come from? 9 times out of 10, that particular negative self-talk, that usually comes from like early childhood, some type of trauma. Maybe you was picked on the playground. You could have been abused, emotional abuse, maybe been physical. But those things start to happen. You imagine, you're this being, you're coming to this planet. You come to the planet. Immediately, you're thrust into this physical body. Now you're being put into a school. So now they programming stuff in your mind. Because if anybody can think about their childhood, there was a knowing that you had as a child. Like there were certain things you knew nobody had to tell you. You knew it. But then you get thrust into a system that starts to program you. And before you know it, the knowing is gone. Like it's gone. I remember I was in college and I started going to this church. And man, it was so crazy because normally, even going back to high school, I'd always have dreams about things before they happen. Premonitions, or you just get these feelings like, ooh man, like okay, I probably shouldn't go on this side of town today or something like that. Or, like I said, I'd have a dream about something days before it would happen. So, man, I remember when I joined this church, they basically told me that, basically was saying like, hey, God doesn't work that way. So, of course, I'm thinking like, okay, well, maybe I was looking at this wrong or something. That's how I'm looking at it. So, man, of course, I, you know, took their doctrine hook, line, and sinker, stayed there for a few years. And, man, once I realized, I'm like, wait a minute, man, like, nah, this ain't it. So, I left. And, man, the moment I left, it was like everything just came right back online. Like everything, the warnings I would get, all that stuff. So I'm like, hold up, man. And looking back at it, man, that was that programming. Like, Jokers done told us how the source works, how the universal prime creator works. That's what I say. When I say the source or God, you might hear me say God, source, universal prime creator. So, but these jokers had told me how that works. And, for a temporary time, I had, believed it. So I'm like, man. So, of course, once I rolled up out of there, I got back on my study. So, check my notes here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back to this point right here. Beliefs often reflect the environment you were raised in. Well, I wasn't raised in this environment, but temporarily I had made this environment like home. Like this was my family now. Like I made it that. So it was starting to reflect that. And I'm just like, wait a minute, man. Nah, this ain't it. So I rolled out. And of course, I went to different spots after that. Different spots. And then finally I was like, you know what, dude? All right, just chill out. So I just got into studying on my own, doing my research. And man, like I said, when I say things came back online, they was back online. So I'm like, all right. So I kept rolling with it. Let's see. So we talked about thought forms. Now, once again, if you're trying to manifest something and you are seriously on this path, there's going to be something that comes up. And what I mean by that, whether it's thought forms or your ego might start messing with you, like, man, when you actually start walking in it and, you say, hey, all right, no, I'm the creator. I'm God. When you start walking in that, man, whoo, buddy, you're going to begin the battle of ages because that ego is like, oh, whoa, hold up. I got to keep this joke in this place. I don't know if any of y'all, I'm pretty sure at this point everybody's seen The Matrix. But if y'all can remember in the movie, Agent Smith, he was Neo's ego. But if you remember, he never called Neo. He always called him Mr. Anderson. Neo was that Joker's spiritual name. That's the name he chose. The anagram for the one. But Smith never acknowledged that Joker. That was his ego. He was always placing doubt. He was like, hey, Mr. Anderson. He always called this dude Mr. Anderson. If you remember before that in the movie, Thomas Anderson. That was just his regular Joe Blow name at his Joe Blow job he's working. That was that identity. And then when he started thinking outside of that, and he morphed into becoming the one, shoot, that Joker's ego never let up. It was like, nah, you always are Mr. Anderson. And with that being said, if you're not dealing with a thought form that you've created, then you gotta deal with your ego. And man, it's one of two things. Either your ego is gonna ride you until you actually get up and do something about it, or man, that joker just gonna rule over you. I mean, and rule. Let's see. What I was about to say. All right, getting back to the ego. if you go back and watch that movie, Smith rolled up in a car. And this is when I said, going back to what I said about the ego, either your ego gonna get you to the point where you like, all right, man, I got to start working on myself, or it's just gonna ride you. But if you get back to the point, Smith rolls up in the car, and the car has a license plate on the front. On the front, it says IS 5416, Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16. Behold, I have created a smith which fans my servants' wind of fire. Look that up. That was in that movie. Now, basically, like I said, this joker either gonna ride you or you gonna ride this joker and be like, nah, homie. It's gonna make you get up and like, all right, let me start working on myself. And going on later in the movie, the only time Smith acknowledged that joker as being the one was right at the end when he called him Neo. And he even said to himself, man, it doesn't sound right. But the aspect of creation was still taking place at that point in the movie, where the Oracle was basically working through all of her creation, the good and the bad. And that ended that whole battle between Neo and his ego, which was Agent Smith. But I just brought that up to give y'all an example. You'll see that in that movie. Okay, going back to the thought forms. Those thought forms are also representative of inner hurdles that the only person who can get over those hurdles is you. You can get yourself over those hurdles. Nobody else can. That comes with time, the energy you put into it, the sacrifices you make. Only you can get you over those hurdles, man. You clear those inner hurdles. And they're going to be some. It'll be all types of stuff come up, man. It'll be some stuff come up you probably forgot about, but once again, if you putting the work in, you got some a form, your form of self-love, which is reflection, self-examination. Another good one is feeling the reaction of your thoughts within the body. Like I said, thought forms. Well, when them negative ones come up, you feel it. Everything gets tight. You feel like you're off. When the good ones come up, man, the body feels lighter. You feel like you're on top of the world. So you have to identify that. Now, getting back to this other method of prayer. Now, prayer and manifestation, we're going to stay on topic here. Now, with that being said, all right, so you begin to visualize what you want. Now, you walking in the energy, you putting the work in, you know, hey, all right, I'm a divine being, I'm source, I'm God. Like, you have made that proclamation. It's like, all right, you putting it out there. All right, well, I told you, you got to test yourself. If it's something you want, okay, let's manifest it. All right, so when it comes to seeing something that you want, not only just see it, but go ahead and put the energy out there. Like, man, like you see yourself. Like, okay, man. And you start to feel the feelings like, oh, man, that's that feeling I'm going to have when I got it. Like, no, when it's yours, like I got it. This is the feeling. See yourself, man. Like, if you want that car, see yourself riding that car. Because that's prayer. But you're making that prayer to the divinity within yourself. That is prayer. And eventually, if you do that enough, while you on this journey, you're going to see that it is you who is answering your prayers. You're going to see that. Some people might say, oh, no, Barry, no, that's what it is. That's what it is. We are sparks of the source, the universal prime creator. We are that. So when you walk in that, you believe that, or even if you look at, it might be some teachers you've looked at all throughout the years, man. Well, I tell you what, they wasn't always teachers. At some point, they had to see it. They had to realize it. So what I'm saying is, when you start putting all those energy in, All that energy, the imagination, the visualization. I mean, to the point to where, say if it's a car, man, you can actually feel the wheel on your hands. You know what I'm saying? Or it's a particular type of money you're trying to manifest. You can touch it. Like you can always say, okay, hey, this is how I'm gonna do this. And you start putting it out there, man. Well, that's the prayer. You're putting all that energy into it, man. You're putting it out there. It's going to come back. I can tell you that right now. That's a guarantee. It is going to come back. I'll give you an example. This some years back. I was working this job. The money was good. It was some good money. I mean, great benefits, but the schedule was grueling. Sometimes it was 7 days a week, sometimes 6, and them days could go from 10 to 12-hour days. Man, I had money in the bank, but I was too tired to spend it. My body be hurting. So man, I still remember this like it was yesterday, man. I was up in this Joker, man, and I was just like, my body's hurting. They already said, well, man, we got to finish this project, and then, everybody can roll out. And I'm like, dude. So, man, I got pissed, man. I had just gotten I just got a raise. Just got some certifications. So I'm sitting here like, man, you know what? Nah, homie. I said, nah, this is it. It was crazy because I got the certification. Just got it. So, man, I'm cross-trained now, like everything. But, man, I got that certification. I was like, nah, you know what? I'm not working these hours like this no more. No, this is it. I said, nah, I'm not doing this. So, man, I got off work because we was doing, like I said, 10, 12-hour days, man. So, I knew, let's see. Hell, we actually had this weekend off. So, let's see, that would have been Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So, man, that Monday came, and like I told you, I just got this certification, man. So I got the certification. So, man, I done went, fixed up the resume, sent the resume out, man. And so, of course, I started getting calls, man. And every job that called me, man, it was like a 12-hour schedule. So I'm like, so of course, I'm sitting here like, well, man, maybe they do got guaranteed days off. So I'm like, hold up, dude, you don't even want to do this. I said, nah. I said, man, now, remember, we talked about emotions. Now, I've manifested things with joyous emotions. I've done it with using anger. I have. Now, in this moment, I got mad. Because I'm like, nah. I was like, nah, F that, man. Nah, I'm not doing that. Nope, not going to do it. Nah. So I said, nah, I'm not working these 12s. I said, nah, this is the job I'm going to get. And I literally said that. Man, Tuesday I'm at work. See a number come up on the phone. So I'm like, all right. I called them back on my break. So I called them back on my break. He's like, hey, Mr. Scott, how you doing? I was like, I'm good. So he was like, well, hey, we got your resume. I said, okay. I said, so where are you guys located? They told me, and I'm like, all right, so what's your hours? What's your schedule? And they was like, oh, nah, we only do 8 hours. And it's Monday through Friday. I said, oh, word. I said, okay. So we'll get you come in for an interview. I was like, man, I could be there tomorrow. He's like, what? I said, yeah. So, man, I actually took like I took like a half a day, man. So I went to the interview, got to the interview. I did the little walk around. Now, remember I told you I just got this certification, man. So the dude started asking me questions about some of the instruments, and I knew some of them I didn't know. So I'm sitting up here like, man, okay. So he said, well, hey, you're not the only candidate. We do have some other candidates, but hey, interview. I liked your interview, and I said, all right, cool. So, man, week passed. So I said, all right, I'm about to call these jokers. So, man, I called him. Guy answered the phone. He said, hey, I was just now about to call you and let you know, hey, we're going to make you an offer on the job. What would be a good start date? Now, manifestation. I manifested that. I didn't go begging and pleading. I was just like, nah, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not. And like I said, I used anger, and it worked. It worked. So, nah, I was like, nope, I'm not doing this. And the reason I wanted to dedicate more time to my spirituality, I wanted to get back in regular times of getting my meditation in and consistent times of meditation, prayer, sun gazing. Yeah, I wanted to get back in the groove, and I got back in it. Yeah. So that was an example. Another example. Now, if y'all remember, I talked about the Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder. I talked about that. Well, I think it was 05, 06, man. I was going through a depression, man. I had lost someone close to me, and I mean, it was like my whole world just crumbled around me, man. I mean, it was a dark depression. And I'm talking about, man, I would just go to work, come home, shower, go to sleep. Man, I mean, it was bad. Like, I was just miserable, man. It was funny because I ended up, I had moved, I relocated to a whole nother state, relocated, man. So some of my books I didn't even bring with me, man. Didn't even bring with me. Well, if we go back to The Dynamic Laws of Healing by Catherine Ponder, in that book, she talked about King Solomon. And it was a phrase that he would always say, this too shall pass. So, man, I remembered that. Like I said, I had read that book like almost 3 years earlier prior to that. And that phrase came to my mind. So, man, I remember I hopped in my car, drove downtown, went and bought the book again, came back, found that chapter, man. And I remember I was laying in bed and I said, okay, this too shall pass. Like I said, all right, this is going to pass. I'm not always going to be depressed. I'm not always going to be depressed. So, man, I would say it at night before I went to bed. I would say it in the morning as soon as I got up. I even wrote it down and put it in my wallet. So, over time, my mood started changing. It still was dark, you know what I'm saying? But it kind of got a little lighter. It did, I actually started, instead of just going home sleeping, I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym or something. So I would go to the gym, work out a little bit, as much as I could do, because I was so depressed. So, man, like, all right, if I can get 30 minutes in, I'm good. Some days I'd just sit in the parking lot, drive back home, lay down on the couch, go to sleep. Then it got to getting in the parking lot, going in there for 10 minutes, then coming back out. So it was like a build-up. So, man, probably like a month and a half had passed. I say really about a month and a half. I ain't gonna say 2 months. Because when I relocated, I actually relocated to a state that had snow. And living down south, I could count the times it snowed, man, when I was growing up. But anyway, it was the first snowfall where I was at, and it was in October. Like, might have been the second week of October, man. I was like, never seen that much snow at all. And I'm like, man, so I had never driven in the snow, really. So some of my coworkers, they actually like came and gave me a ride, because I was like, man, I was scared. Like, people just driving fast on the freeway. I'm like, man, these people nuts. I'm doing like 45, jokers is blowing at me. So, man, I get off on the exit. I'm like, nah, I'm turning back around. So I call like, yo, I'm not coming in. He's like, what's going on? I said, sir, I never drove in the snow. He was like, what? I said, nah. He's like, I tell you what, I'm going to send some of the guys to come get you, man. We'll make sure you get home. All right. So they came and got me. So mind y'all, I told you I still was affirming this too shall pass. So, man, I'm at work. I'm at my station, get my little workstation ready. So I'm sitting there. And I could feel, anybody that's ever been depressed, you can just feel when either some negative thoughts about to come up, and it's like, oh, man. So this time, I was at my station. And, man, I went to reach in my wallet to get it, to get the little phrase I had read. I mean, I was already saying it, but sometimes I would feel empowered if I just opened it up and read it. So, man, I sat there and I said, this too shall pass. Man, when I said it this time, oh my gosh, it literally felt like something had lifted up off of me and like it flew off. Like that's what it felt like. And I said, whoa. Like I just sat there for a second, like, yo. And this is exactly what I said. This is exactly what I said when that happened. I said, oh shit, it's on now. I said, I'm back. Like I knew that. I said, I'm back. I know it. And that's exactly what I said. I said, oh shit, it is on. I'm back. And man, I might have got down after that, but it was nothing. It was nothing like it had been before. And it was nothing like that. Now, going into the depression. Of course, like I said, I had lost someone that was very close to me. But at that time, you know, I had actually believed certain things or certain concepts that were rooted in the belief system that I was a part of at that time. You know, I was like, man, I'm a bad person. And I was believing this. I was believing that stuff, man. I was almost say about to say I believe in that shit, but you know, you get a few in there every now and then. But anyway, I had actually believed that, like wholeheartedly, man. And when I had manifested a better way. I got up out of depression, man. I got up out of it. Now, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not saying that that's the way it should be done. It worked for Barry Scott, you know, so it worked for me. It worked for Coach Scott. But that was something that I had manifested. Another example of it. A funny one. Man, let's see. It was my first car that I had ever paid for. First car I ever paid for. Got financed, because before that, my mom helped me get some cars. Like she did. She helped me get some cars, man. So, man, I just cleaned the car up. Came from the car wash. The car's clean. Went by the cigar lounge. Got a cigar, man. So, man. It's kind of funny, though. So, anyway, got the ride cleaned up. Got my cigar. So, I'm rolling, man. You know, I done went to the barbershop. I had hair then, so, you know, I done got it lined up. I'm looking good. So, man, I'm coming down. Then passed through a few lights. And, man, I said, man, you know what? Damn. Man, it'll be good. It would be good if this weekend went this way. That's exactly what I said. I just said, man, it'd be great if this weekend goes this way. Now, mind you, I was in a good place. The energy levels was high. Had my cigar, then cleaned the car up. Had some jazz going. I like jazz. I had my music going. And man, sure enough, got back to the house. You know, I kind of took a shower, kind of lounged around. Because usually, if I got my cigars or something, man, you know, I'm going to open my windows up, man. I got my music playing. So I'm just sitting up in there puffing away, man. Knock at the door. Yo, what's up? Oh, hey, what's going on? So, man, his friend, she stopped by. So, man, she was like, oh, hey, B, you know, I just wanted to see how you was doing. So I said, all right, well, cool, come on in. I'm not going to get into the details of what I had manifested, but I didn't think that joker was coming over. But anyway, I manifested it. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But that's the power of prayer and manifestation. And two types of prayer. You know, you making these prayers within yourself, you know, creating your own harmonizing energy to manifest what you want. And I've done that multiple times. And I still do it to test myself. Like, all right, I'm like, hey, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. And I do it. But it's up to you. You know, I can do these videos. Some people can get it, some people won't. But as long as you get it, that's what counts. So, thank you all for tuning in. Once again, this is Coach Scott. I hope you take something. No, you are going to take something from this video, and it's going to benefit your life. I'm not hoping it's going to do that. I know that. But thank you all for tuning in. Once again, this is Coach Scott. If you need once again, you need a coaching session or a consultation, you can reach me at www.lifeis4living.net. All right. Peace.